Love GAA history? Then you'll love going deeper with Over the Bar's Cordia Club membership. For just €5 a month, you'll get exclusive member-only episodes and series, early ad-free access to the main podcast, plus detailed show notes, a newsletter, and the chance to have your questions answered. Join Michael Foley and Ciaran O'Hara as they uncover the stories, the legends, and the questions that shaped our games. Don't just listen, be part of the club. Join now at overthebar.club.
Since the dawn of the GAA in 1884, the telling of its stories have been just as important as the sports. Through the years, heroes and matches have been immortalised, inspiring generation after generation. But some of its most important stories have also gotten lost or turned into legend. And in this series, we will explore some of the GAA's most fascinating forgotten tales, separating rumour from reality and myth from the truth that is often more amazing than the fiction. I'm Michael Foley.
And I'm Ciaran O'Hara.
So join us for Over the Bar, exploring the histories of the GAA.
Hello everybody and welcome along to our latest edition of Over the Bar, the Gaelic Games History Podcast. If you are listening to us right now, as in this week, this year that this episode is coming out, we are in mid-World Cup mode, and that means we're also kind of in the middle, Ciaran, of our very tenuously linked GAA/ World Cup episode series where we're kind of, grasping at any story we can find to link these two fine institutions together.
Oh, you betcha. If there's a bit of ground football that's connected to a bit of aerial ping pong, we're in there.
Now, I have to say, I think, the last time out we were talking about Italian 90s. So I think that's a good, solid link. And I have to say that the one today also comes with a good, solid World Cup link. If Italia 90 is the first thing you think of about Ireland and the World Cup, I think the next thing you possibly think of, well, maybe you actually think of Jack Charlton and the team. But the third thing you think of, I would say, is two men. Well, three men. But we're talking about two men in particular today, and that's John Giles and Eamon Dunphy.
Okie doke.
Yeah, well, I don't want to forget Billo. How could I possibly forget Billo? We're certainly not. But the question that I'm putting to you today, Ciaran, brings these two titans of Irish sports broadcasting, football broadcasting, firmly into the sphere of GAA. Ciaran, can you tell me, when did John Giles and Eamon Dunphy line out against Galway?
Well, I can, Michael.
Good.
And it's
that question then.
It's a truly absurd story. Like, I want to put it to you this way. Let's suppose that when the Ireland team returned from their game against Canada there, what was it, a few weeks before the World Cup?
Yeah.
That Heimir Hallgrímsson took them to play against, I don't know, let's just pick Donegal because maybe Shamie Coleman would have a connection. In a Gaelic football match.
Right.
And we're in the bounds of how absurd this is. So you would have had Seamus Coleman, Troy Parrott, Caoimhín Kelleher, Chidozie Ogbene, playing a bit of aerial ping pong against Jim McGuinness's Donegal.
In high season for the footballers, of course.
Well, yeah, in high season. So yeah, when they're they're getting ready for championship.
Yeah. And they're playing the Irish football team in a game of Gaelic football. So this is what happened. What year are we talking? I mean, this sounds so ridiculous. It sounds ridiculous. I'm going to suggest perhaps it was ridiculous, but tell us more. How did this even come about? How was this a thing?
Well, I think we need to start with Rule 27.
Oh, I love starting in the rule book. That's always, I tell you what, That's if there's an audience getter, it's starting an episode in the middle of the GA's official guide. Rule 20, what? 27 or 26?
Rule 27.
27. Oh, I wish it said 26. That's one of my favourite rules.
Okay, so what is Rule 26 then?
I have no idea, but I'm sure it's brilliant. I'm sure it's brilliant. Go on with your Rule 27. So
Rule 27, which was the ban, what we all knew as the ban.
Okay, all right, okay.
So the ban was dropped at a Congress in Belfast in 1971.
Momentous day.
In the Mandela Hall in Queen's University. Only 2 counties voted against it. Those being Antrim and Sligo.
Sligo
voted against it.
A bastion of Gaelic football and soccer. If you had said to me that could you pick a county where soccer and Gaelic football maybe lived comfortably side by side, I would have said Sligo, but no.
No, and in actual fact, Sligo do become the first beneficiaries of it because 2 semi-professional Sligo Rovers players are in the Sligo team within months of the ban being dropped. Those being Jerry Mitchell and David Pugh. And they make a seismic difference to that Sligo team. They give their forward line punch. You know, they beat Roscommon that summer. They become competitive over the years that follow. And by 1975, they've bridged one of the biggest gaps in interprovincial football. And David Pugh and Jerry Mitchell are absolutely central to this. But they also play a part in how this game in Tuam comes about. Because David Pugh, in the 1 year where he was a full professional footballer, it was in the United States in 1968, he went to play for a team called the Boston Beacons.
Fantastic.
His roommate was one Paddy Mulligan.
Be Jesus.
From Dublin.
Of course.
And Paddy Mulligan, while he was from Dublin, from Drumcondra, was a massive Galway football fan. His mother's family were from Tuam. His parents both worked in St. Brendan's Psychiatric Hospital in Dublin, so they worked long hours, and very often young Paddy would be shipped off to Tuam for his holidays or when he needed to be minded. So he grew up a really big Galway Gaelic football fan at a time when the terrible twins were at their peak.
Our friends Sean Purcell, Frank Stockwell, 1950s.
Yeah, so Paddy Mulligan by 1974 is an established Ireland international. He's playing for Crystal Palace. He's been playing for Chelsea. He's fairly pivotal in the team. And his buddy David Pugh is now lining out for Sligo Rovers and Sligo. And this puts the idea in Paddy Mulligan's head that it would be great to have a bit of a charity match between a Gaelic county team and the Irish international soccer team.
It just sounds like a complete lark, a wheeze. You know, like it makes no sense. Okay, of course, look, a charity match is always very laudable, of course, you know, that goes without saying. But it's a complete bit of japery to say, I'm going to get the Irish, even if you are a football, it is exactly like Seamus Coleman going to Heimer Hallgrimsson and going, come on, we'll do a match for charity. You know, why not? Just get all the lads together. They'll love it.
And I mean, the timing of it, so they had the idea around 73, but it's in 74 it actually occurs. And it's as a fundraiser for Tuam CBS, for a building fund. And in the meantime, so there's a couple of serious developments in Irish football in 1974 in the spring. They appoint a director of football or a director of coaching for the first time, a guy called John Jarman, who had been working for the FA. He's Welsh, I believe, and he'd been working for the FA in the Midlands. And he comes to Ireland to be the director of football. And he's got a brief laid out by the FAI, which is basically that he's going to improve coaching standards in every international team we have.
Right.
And this coincides with them appointing John Giles as player manager, who's given a brief that he'll have complete control of the Irish national senior team and nobody else is going to be getting in the way.
I'm going to raise my hand at this point. Sorry, Karen. I'm going to raise my hand at this point. I see a contradiction. I see a complete contradiction here, right? You can't have your director of football effectively dictating policy to your senior national coach. Is this what the FAI have overlooked in the two job specs?
It seems to be, and in the months that follow, what we see in the papers is several articles about John Giles having no problem with John Jarman. John Jarman is there to book flights and organise training facilities and gear and all this for his senior national team. And John Jarman saying he has no issue with John Giles, but he was promised things in his contract by the FAI that he's not getting to look after. So we have a classically FAI situation.
It's pure FAI.
And throw into that then that John Giles wants to prepare the team as best he can against the highest possible standard of opposition. So obviously he goes for the Galway football team. No, I'm kidding.
I mean, at the very least, he could have gone for the Cork footballers who beat Galway in the 1973 All-Ireland
final.
But I mean,
that's the point. That is the point. They're playing the team that were runners up in the previous year's All-Ireland. No, but in any event, so what Giles decides he wants to do is he wants to take a squad to South America on a 3-country tour to play Brazil in the Maracanã, to play Uruguay in Montevideo, and to play Chile in Santiago.
Don't tell me that Galway in Tuam was the FAI's compromise solution.
No. But in any event, so in order to prepare for this, he organises a training camp at the Crystal Palace Sports Centre in London, which people probably know as an athletics venue and gymnastics and all that, but it was kind of a venue that you hired for high performance training in the 70s and 80s. So he's getting a camp together there. He's picking his squad to go to South America. There's a little bit of disappointment because he hasn't got one young Liam Brady in it, but that's because Arsenal are trying to protect the young Liam Brady. He doesn't select Jerry Daly initially in it, who's been playing well for Manchester United, who've just been relegated by their nearest and dearest.
It's a different world.
But the big shock is he recalls 2 players who haven't been in the squad for a couple of years. Namely, Tony Dunn and one, Eamon Dunphy. So Dunphy hasn't been in the squad for 3 years. He arrives back in. Depending on what memories you encounter of that training camp in Crystal Palace, Dunphy, in Paddy Mulligan's memory, was hanging around picketing their training, encouraging them not to go to Chile because it would legitimise the government of Augustin Pinochet.
Aha, not a nice guy.
Yeah.
Not
so
one
there's
of
been
history's
a coup
good
the year
guys.
before Pinochet's in power. Like, Chile have actually qualified for the 1974 World Cup because the Soviet Union would not travel to play them in an intercontinental qualifier. They basically say we'd sooner not go to the World Cup than play in that stadium, in that state at the moment. But Ireland are going there. They're going to be the first country to visit Chile. So in Paddy Mulligan's memory, Dunphy's picketed the training camp. He's handing out leaflets to them as they're going in each day. And he's just generally dead set against the tour. But then there's an injury and Dunphy jumps at the chance to join the squad. Now, that can't be true because, as I say, the squad had been announced in the papers and the big story had been that Eamon Dunphy had been called back. In Johnny Giles' memoir, he sees Eamon as having been pivotal to educating the group while they were in this training camp because he had leaflets about what was happening in South America so that they'd have some idea what had happened in Chile and they weren't just going to go in there as naive footballers. In any event, it is not going down well that the Irish soccer team are going to Chile and are going to be used as a propaganda tool by the Pinochet regime. Now, it's the 3rd game on the tour, so they lose 2-0 to Brazil in the Maracanã. They lose to Uruguay and they move on to Chile, and Dunphy does an interview about it when they come back, saying that we were used and we shouldn't have gone, and he regretted it and said that there was a taxi driver shot while they were there, and that that the blood of people who'd been tortured in the stadium had been painted over and that they could see it. And in later years, either he or Joe Kinnear revealed that they'd heard an incident out on the street where there was gunfire, and they assumed, so this is dark stuff. What happens then is they come back from the tour, and this appears in state papers 30 years later.
Right. This, yeah. So, I mean, Dunphy is creating some degree of waves. Is it the but Ciaran, is it his resistance to going? Because it doesn't sound like he was resistant to going. No, I don't think he was ever resistant.
He wanted them to go and be informed in the going.
Yeah.
That by going, they were leaving themselves open to target by people in the public, because he was firmly in favour of the boycott of South African sport. So he was conscious that what was happening here was somewhat at odds with his opinions. And he was accused of being a hypocrite by some of the papers for going on the trip when he was seen to be so strongly in favour of the boycott in South Africa. But in any event, they come back, and you're kind of going, it's gone very well for John Giles. John Giles is invited by Mario Zagallo to spend a couple of weeks at the 1974 World Cup shadowing the Brazilians.
Love GAA history? Then you love going deeper with Over the Bar's Cordia Club membership. For just €5 a month, you'll get exclusive member-only episodes and series, early ad-free access to the main podcast, plus detailed show notes, a newsletter, and the chance to have your questions answered. Join Michael Foley and Ciaran O'Hara as they uncover the stories, the legends, and the questions that shaped our games. Don't just listen, be part of the club. Join now at overthebar.club.
Tremendous.
But for the rest of the lads, what usually happened at this time in professional football was you had summer earners. And I don't know if it was that their contracts just ended when the season finished and then that they were free to do whatever they wanted. But they were all either going off playing in exhibition games or in five-a-side tournaments. And it just so happened that there was a big five-a-side tournament being organised in Waterford around the time they come back from Chile. So there's all the Irish internationals. There's a few English internationals like Mike Summerby and these guys are playing in it. And that's when Paddy Mulligan says, God, this would be the time now to organise my Gaelic football exhibition, and I'll do it for the Tuam CBS. So around this time in the local papers in Connacht, what begins to appear is advertisements for the match of the century.
Oh, I like. Well, if you're gonna advertise it, go all in, I suppose.
So the match of the century is to be between an international selection which features Paddy Mulligan, Johnny Giles, Derek Dugan.
Northern Ireland's Derek Dugan.
Yeah, Mike Summerby, Frank O'Neill, David Pugh, Jerry Daly, Jimmy Holmes, Owen Hand, Mick Martin, Shea Brennan, Peter Thomas, Alfie Hale, Ray Tracy, and Tony Dunn.
And just to be clear here, Ciaran, you've named off a cavalcade of stars there, legal kind of domestic stars, people from across the water, everything. Was it always very clear that it was going to be a Gaelic football game? There was never a suggestion that it was going to be a ground football game, a soccer game.
No, the intention apparently was that it would be one half of each.
Okay.
So, they could have gone with the game of two halves rather than the match of the century. But in any event, you'll notice that in that team I just named, there's no mention of Eamon Dunphy.
And I did ask the question, when did he line out against Galway?
So obviously this is what Paddy Mulligan is using to sell it. Not all of these guys show up. But it's set for Tuam Stadium on Wednesday the 29th of May at 7:45pm sharp. Admission is to be 30 pence, with children being 10 pence. And it was to be followed by a reception, dinner and social afterwards in the Hermitage Hotel in Tuam.
Very nice.
So that this is a big effort here, you know.
They put their shoulders to the wheel, and it is Gaelic football. So we there is the slight small chance that Mike Summerby is going to rock up to play a Gaelic football just shortly after finishing his season with Manchester City. Does that actually come to pass, that kind of thing?
No.
No,
it does not. So what I'll do next is probably name the actual international team that did take the field on the night. So we had Peter Thomas, who was an Irish international who was actually capped on that trip to South America as a goalkeeper because Alan Kelly was injured. And he was actually an Englishman that had moved to play with Waterford, and I think Waterford and gained citizenship. Now, there's a couple of Galway players, what they call Galway reserves in the international selection. So the first of those is Michael Walsh.
Mm-hmm.
Then you have Declan Smith, who's also Galway. Then you have Don Givens, and I'm presuming that Don Givens wasn't playing a corner back.
Well, it's an unusual change of tack for Don if he did head into the corner.
You got Mick Lawler from Shamrock Rovers,
right half back.
Presumably so.
Apparently.
It is the order.
On, yeah. Okay.
David Pugh from Sligo. Mick Martin from Man United, who, and of course, like Mick Martin's father, Con, had played for Dublin.
Absolutely did. Did he win All Ireland?
I'd have to check. I'm not certain at the moment. We might come back to that one. Paddy Mulligan, Crystal Palace. Jarlath Burke of Galway. Michael Rooney of Galway. Owen Hand of Portsmouth. This may be the only Gaelic team ever that features a lot of association football clubs as the clubs. Johnny Giles of Leeds United. Jerry Daly of Manchester United. John Keogh, an ex-international.
Okay. Okay.
So obviously not affiliated to a club at the moment. And Eamon Dunphy, Charlton Athletic.
Number 15. Down the corner. Ciaran, I have to say, by the look of this, I mean, if you were asking me where would you put John Giles in the Gaelic football team, I would put him at wing forward for sure. I would put Owen Hand at centre forward. He was a strong guy. Jerry Daly was a striker, wasn't he, in his day? Was he a striker or was he a midfielder?
No, Jerry Daly was really a midfielder.
Midfielder, okay. Maybe corner forward. But Don Givens at left corner back. That's the strange one. I know this whole thing is ridiculous and I shouldn't really be analysing anything about it, but I can't help but stare at that selection and go, I don't know, was that the best use of his talent?
Yeah, and I mean they're playing a pretty good Galway team. Like you've got Gay Mitchell in goals, you've got John Dillon, Tommy Joe Gilmore, Johnny Hughes, Liam Salmon, Willie Joyce, you know what I mean?
It's a strong team. I mean, this is the Galway team that
Jimmy Duggan.
That lost in All-Ireland's final 73, will get to the 74 All-Ireland final. This is one of the best Galway teams not to win an All-Ireland, I suppose, is the nicest thing you could say.
And I mean, it does attract a large crowd. Now, it doesn't specify in any of the match reports why ultimately the game ended up being played as a Gaelic match only.
The venue may have had something to do with it, Ciaran.
I was thinking they may not have had, the roll-in soccer goals that you see now.
Oh yeah, that was the issue. Yeah, the roll-in soccer goals were the issue.
Or maybe it was kind of a Go Games thing that they were afraid if they reduced to 11 aside that there'd be too many fellas missing out.
That would be what you don't want is Don Givens sitting on the line going, I would have played left corner back if you'd just given me the chance.
But in any event, would you like to know how the game went?
I certainly would, yeah, please.
Well, the first thing I should say is that the final score was 3-11 to 2-13.
Okay.
So a scoreline of 20 points to 19 points.
This is a good game.
This is a good game. This is a thriller. And if you were sitting there thinking, God, the soccer team really ran the Galway team close, you would be wrong.
Oh, my goodness.
Because the ground football team won.
Fantastic.
And I mean, they had some big performers. So you've got Johnny Giles, your preferred wing forward, chipped in 2 points.
Nice, yeah.
Jerry Daly delivered 1-2.
What? See, what? There you go. You see, bringing a bit of that, physical oomph that he would have from playing midfield in soccer. 1-2, nice.
And thank God they called up Eamon Dunphy from Charlton.
The will-o'-the-wisp corner forward, Ciaran.
Contributed 1-1.
Oh my God. That's very impressive.
Yeah, now, it does appear to have been... I'm going to try and find a line from the match report for you here.
Mm-hmm.
The soccer men, captained by Paddy Mulligan, played an exciting and new style of Gaelic football.
A new style, okay.
They carefully constructed each move, and once they got possession, a Galway man rarely interrupted. So precise was their passing. Neither did they boot the ball out of defence. Instead, they passed it along. Nearly all was in the air, and sometimes with a hand pass, and slowly built up an attack.
That sounds very 21st century, Ciaran, I have to say.
I'm
Possession game.
Yeah, they're not just kicking away possession, are they?
Yeah, slow build up, hold the ball. Interesting.
And I mean, Billy Joyce actually, when asked about them afterwards, had this to say. He said they were very fast on the ball. It was very hard to take it off them. They were deadly.
Deadly.
So Paddy Mulligan said, it was very enjoyable. I found the game physically harder than soccer. And in championship football, I imagine it is really tougher, but it was great.
Ah, that's great. So it all came right for Paddy. He picked himself at midfield, made himself captain, got to play a game in Tuam Stadium and won.
Yeah, and I mean, then they go down to the Heritage Hotel, and some of the local papers, while they didn't carry match reports, they carried heaps of photos of the lads at this dinner and people meeting them and all the rest of it. But actually, one of the things that, different people had to get up and speak. It sounds kind of like, after dinner circuit type stuff.
Yeah. Kind of like a bit of cabaret type, tell a few yarns sort of stuff.
Like that kind of thing. And I mean, at this dinner, Liam Salmon spoke, I think, for the Galway footballers. Johnny Giles got up and spoke about a little tradition that they developed on their recent trip to South America, where the worst player, worst trainer, worst player in the game had to wear a yellow jersey afterwards. Sounds a lot like I had a Macedonia in later years. And that he was awarding Eamon Dunphy the yellow jersey for today's game. So
that's really
I don't
harsh.
think he really appreciated Amo's 1-1.
He scored 1-1. What did he want? What more does he want from his corner forwards?
Maybe he was a little annoyed at Eamon's interview to the Sunday World when he came back and said that they shouldn't have gone to South America. Who knows?
I think it's a very harsh way to take it out on him by giving him the I had a Macedonia jersey after clearly a starring performance in left corner forward.
Not, content with giving the interview about the Chile scenario. Apparently Eamon had also done an interview with another paper where he had described how difficult, shall we say, the relationship was becoming at their training camps between the FAI's new director of coaching and the FAI's new national team manager. And this may come back to do him some damage subsequently later in the year.
Yeah, that sounds like not the best move in the world if he wants to keep playing for Ireland. But anyway, so it was a tremendous success. Tuam CBS got a good earner, I hope, and they got whatever they needed.
There's a big crowd. They seem to have done very well out of the post-match social. And I mean, for the Irish team, you do kind of get a sense that I think it shows the bond that they're developing. Like if you have this match, so John Giles has come back from the World Cup to play in this match. And to the likes of Paddy Mulligan, it shows a great solidarity with him. Now, John Giles' own history with GAA was, he did have one. He went to, was it Brunswick Street CBS in Dublin?
Mm-hmm. That's correct, yeah.
He, in his book, has spoken at length about how he was made to feel often like a second-class citizen for being one of the soccer guys.
A football man, Ciaran, if you just want to use the correct terminology.
Yeah, a football man.
Thank you.
And I mean, he did enjoy playing Gaelic when he played it in the school. So, you know, this almost feels like his little redemption tour post-ban, you know what I mean?
Well, the whole thing, actually, just when you mentioned that redemption tour post-ban, it's interesting because that's what the sense I get of it is. It's almost like there's a slight feeling of liberation around all of this, you know, that, you know, now we can play the forbidden sports, and you know, we can all come back together here and play a game. Now, I know that I'm sure that wasn't in the thinking of anybody putting this together, but it's just kind of, maybe it's a feeling in that time because, you know, you mentioned Pugh and Mitchell who played for Sligo. If you roll on a couple of more years, like with Dublin, we did, you know, when we did our episode on the first player manager to win an All-Ireland, which was essentially about Tony Hanahan, the Dubs in the 70s. My memory tells me that the Dubs played a soccer match that involved Ray Tracy, Eamon, Dunphy, all those guys for charity as well. So, you know, it was kind of back, you know, there was a sort of a general cross-pollination because, well, we can do this now. It's almost a bit like the Berlin Wall coming down and going, well, I don't really need to go across that street, but I'll do it now because I can.
Love GAA history? Then you love going deeper with Over the Bar's Cordia Club membership. For just €5 a month, you'll get exclusive member-only episodes and series, early ad-free access to the main podcast, plus detailed show notes, a newsletter, and the chance to have your questions answered. Join Michael Foley and Ciaran O'Hara as they uncover the stories, the legends, and the questions that shaped our games. Don't just listen, be part of the club. Join now at overthebar.club.
Why not?
Yeah, there does seem to have been more kind of sporting ecumenism. Like one of the things I came across in the sports pages around this time, the Dublin bombings had occurred recently. And John Jarman was talking to his counterpart in the IRFU about them organising some kind of big benefit for the victims of the bombings and their families that would involve five-a-side soccer and sevens rugby. So there does seem to have been, you know, this whole attitude of we can do things for good and we can appreciate each other's sports. And I mean, for the Irish team, as I say, there's a number of them that will be in Giles' subsequent squads. And what he was trying to build up to with that trip to South America and with the kind of esprit de corps he was trying to develop among the team was they were going to be playing the Soviet Union at home in October in a European Championship qualifier, and he wanted to make an impact, you know. So he was going to have Jerry Daly now involved in that. So Jerry Daly's been in Tuam with the gaffer, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
he's going to have Liam Brady by the time they get to October. They organised a training camp in Bisham Abbey, I think, which was the FA's kind of centre of excellence around that time. But they actually cancelled it to have the camp in Ireland. Now there seems to have been some issues around. The players really, really wanted to play the Soviet Union in Dalymount Park. And there was some doubt about it because UEFA declared that you couldn't play night games there. The floodlights just weren't good enough. So they managed to get a 3 p.m. kickoff for that Soviet Union game. Now, for Eamon Dunphy, in the meantime, he's landed himself in hot water. And the perception since has become that he was too vocal about the Chile thing. And, you know, that's where Paddy Mulligan's memory of, Eamon was picketing and it wasn't that actually at all that landed him in trouble. It was the article about John Jarman and John Giles. So by the time we're getting ready for that game against the Soviet Union in October, John Giles is telling Eamon Dunphy that they want to suspend him because he spoke to the press. And clearly John Giles' influence on Eamon Dunphy is such that he sends a letter to the FAI pleading innocence and claiming that he'd been misrepresented by the journalist that he spoke to.
It must have killed him to do this. He can't have felt good about this.
You would imagine so. And I mean, he's in subsequent squads, but he never plays for Ireland again. Now, that's probably more a reflection of the ability of the players that are now coming into the squad at that time. But he basically throws the journalist under the bus.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ouch.
in order to get off. And the FAI say, that having received that letter, they're reassured that he won't do anything like that again in future. And he's free to be selected for Ireland again.
He won't do anything like that again in future. Love that.
That game against the Soviet Union becomes one of those seismic results for Ireland. They're only really surpassed by victories over England. That's where we're standing at that stage. So they go on to win that game 3-0 against the Soviet Union in Dublin.
And remember who scores the goals, Ciaran? It's our favourite left corner back, Don Givens. Very, very famous hat-trick. Maybe Giles, he saw something in the way, when they were coming forward playing that possession game in Tuam. Maybe he saw something, a kind of a Padder Morgan style quality about Givens, the way he darted forward and said, he could be, if we just played him all the time up front, I wonder what would happen.
But, we've talked before about, in one of our episodes, the president of Ireland being expelled from the GAA because he attended soccer and rugby games. What you would imagine occurred in the aftermath of that Tuam game, it's not hard to picture friends of Paddy Mulligan's from Tuam having watched him and his mates in Tuam Stadium and gone to meet them at the Hermitage Hotel in the aftermath and seeing the good they did for Tuam CBS. It's not inconceivable that there's a large number of them in Dalymount Park just a couple of months later. And all that is made possible because this rule, that archaic Rule 27, has been stricken from the rule book of the GAA.
It sounds a bit crazy now, the whole idea of the game being played. But, as you said, it is very, very significant. And it probably does. You're right. It's one of those moments where the Irish football team, of course, always to a certain constituency of the country, would have been a national football team and had that status. But to another constituency, they would have been part of, I suppose, the other during the ban years. They wouldn't have been considered by GA people as Fíor Gaels, I suppose, the same way that John Giles and many, many other kids who were into football in school were kind of ostracised or forced to play Gaelic games. That now they could say, well, look at both these games have their worth and there should be parity.
And ever since, all we do when big tournaments come around is, his background is in. Yeah. So whether it's Packy Bonner or Pat Jennings or
Jerry Armstrong.
And I mean, that's the thing, that all this stuff is happening at that time.
Yeah.
We can see the pedigree of a Martin O'Neill right down to who was the Spanish international who used to go to Meath for English lessons.
Oh, Xabi Alonso.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Any connection.
Any connection at all.
And the GA are proud to make those connections now. And GA people are proud to make those connections. And speaking of connections, we mentioned Con Martin earlier on. Leinster football medal in 1941 he won. But and again, this speaks to the whole issue around the ban. Because of the ban, he was expelled because he was playing soccer for Drumcondra at the same time. So he didn't get his Leinster medal for 1941 until after the ban was lifted in 1971. So around this time, Mick Martin's dad finally got his Leinster medal from 1941. So, you mentioned about John Giles's kind of connections of sorts to Gaelic Games, Paddy Mulligan's connections to Gaelic Games. I'm curious about Dunphy because in his later years as a journalist, he always struck me as having this kind of romantic affinity, particularly with hurling. I know he's got Kilkenny roots. I mean, do we know anything about his kind of GA background, if he had one?
The only thing we do know with certainty is that when he's written about Gaelic Games, he's written about the passion he has for, Kilkenny hurling and watching Shefflin in particular, who, he claimed was an artist. But I mean, probably the most, and this may be where we wrap up this current batch of soccer connections. There was a lovely piece done by Second Captains when Jack Charlton died, where they put audio by him to the music of Conor Walsh. And one of the lines he had was when he was describing the style of play that they had, that he wanted it to be like the Gaelic. So while Jack was always someone who promoted a particular style of play, that high pressing, long ball, put him under pressure play, when he came to Ireland, he felt it fitted because he felt he could compare it to the Gaelic and use that as a reference with the players. And I've never heard that line used anywhere other than in that kind of obituary piece. But it makes so much sense that was what he would tap into. The kick and rush element, the follow-up, the hair and scare him. That he thought that the contact, all that, he thought that would be something that the Irish players would find easy to do because he believed it was something that was in their DNA.
Yeah. And we saw a little element of it that lovely summer's evening in Tuam in 1974 when Paddy Mulligan brought his boys down to play Galway and came away with a famous 1-point win. Ciaran, that was a great story. It's just a great story. I love, when these little tidbits kind of just percolate, out of somewhere, and you kind of start to pull them apart and find different meaning in them and different stories and stuff. That was really good. Thank you so much for bringing us through that. I hope everybody enjoyed that one. I certainly did listen to that. It was great. Thank you so much for listening. Again, as we always do, I will urge you, if you enjoyed this episode, let other people know that we're here and we're going to be here for a long time. We have 80 plus episodes now if you join up as a Cordial member.
Oh yeah, we're here for a long time, not a good time.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what we invite you to come for as well. A long time, not a good time. No, but we've got 80 plus episodes for our members now. So, if you think you know anybody who might enjoy these, just share the good news. And, on your little podcast machine app there, just like us, maybe rate us, leave a review, leave a comment, whatever you think you might like to do, because all that helps.
Give us some tips. Like if you've got a story that you think is worth telling, pass that on.
Absolutely. All these little bits and pieces are just they're like fuel into the fire that keeps the whole thing going. And of course, this week, don't forget, coming on the weekend, we'll have a very special bite-size, Ciaran, because we are right at the business end now of the All-Ireland Hurling Championship, All-Ireland semi-final weekend. So Saturday morning, in your feed, you will find some quick-fire yarns telling a few stories about Cork, Galway and Limerick Clare.
And if you join us on the Cordial Club this week, if you're not already a member, the episode that we'll be dropping exclusively for you this week is on why fellas were kissing the bishop's ring at the start of matches.
Ooh, or missus. Let me tell you, that was a very, how would I put it? It was a very comprehensive and full deep dive research I did for this particular one. So come over and join us if you fancy having a listen to indeed why Gaelic players were kissing the bishop's ring for quite a few decades. And Ciaran, more than happy to do it, let me tell you. We'll be explaining all of that in our members episode. But in the meantime, join us at Bite Size, certainly this weekend, and we'll talk to you very soon with our next episode.
Slangful.
Love GEA history? Then you love going deeper with Over the Bar's Cordial Club membership. For just €5 a month, you'll get exclusive member-only episodes and series, early ad-free access to the main podcast, plus detailed show notes, a newsletter, and the chance to have your questions answered. Join Michael Foley and Ciaran O'Hara as they uncover the stories, the legends, and the questions that shaped our games. Don't just listen, be part of the club. Join now at overthebar.club.